Hello and welcome to the Rugby Chat podcast. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a website, podcast, Twitter account and YouTube channel bringing you the best in rugby predictions and opinion. Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcasting app so we drop into your phone every week. And also please leave us a 5-star review. Other stars are available, but why would you want to do that? If you'd like to watch what happens behind the covers, the show's live on YouTube at 8 p.m. New Zealand time every Tuesday. And you can join in the discussion on our 5 questions via Twitter. Just follow at DrivingMaul, look for the questions and use #RugbyChat. This week, it's a 2-man show. It's Blues all the way. And joining me is Ashwin from the Blues West Stand Massive.
Hello, everybody. I have one thing to say.
Oh.
If it works.
Oh dear!
I might save some for a bit later.
So did you? So did you watch the Brisbane Tens then?
I did. Ironically, I watched it all apart from the final. So,
I did. I didn't watch any of it, to be honest. So how much do players like Carlos Spencer actually get involved?
Nothing. I don't remember seeing him on the field. Well, no, that's an exaggeration for effect. But no, look, I mean, the times I saw him on the field, he was out on the wing. There was no Carlos magic. There was nothing. I mean, like, in saying that, I think you don't know, but you feel that he left. There was a lot of effect off the field in terms of leading up to the competition. In terms of the players looking up to him, the experience and the game management side of things, even on game day, you assume that there was a lot of effect from that. Talking, when you hear the players speak, although they do speak in cliches, you do feel that there was an effect from the experience of him in the squad.
Oh, interesting. Because when you said in the lead up he was influential, I thought you meant by marketing point of view. I mean, I've seen him all over various different social media and doing little videos and all this kind of stuff. So I've seen quite a lot of him that point of view. I didn't realize you actually think he actually rubbed off on the players in a kind of mentoring / kind of coaching role.
Yeah, exactly. That's you probably put it into words better than I did when I was stumbling through it. That's it. Absolutely right in the mentoring role. And one of the things you sort of realise is that, geez, would be great to have him in the Super Rugby setup as well, with the obviously the mana that he brought to the team, to the younger players, just for our international audience, mana being sort of respect.
And let's be honest, he is still a specimen, isn't he? If I ever looked as fit and as good as he does now, I'd be well happy. But no, yeah, that guy he's ripped, and so clearly he does. He still works out plenty.
I think that's part of the respect that was gained by him in the game in the lead up, is the fact that he's so fit. He's obviously mixing it with the guys on the training paddock. So like if you've got some sort of somebody with a gold card sort of running around and looking sprightly, there's no excuse for the younger guys, is there?
Well, gold card, he's younger than I am.
And me. Actually, I think he's the same year as me, but anyway.
Yeah, because he's 42, so yeah.
Oops.
From memory, I wouldn't mind a gold card. Hey, it'd be I'm not too proud to take any kind of
freebies,
any kind of freebies at all. And on that note, we now have super chat on the old YouTube. So if you fancy hitting that $ in the chat on YouTube, then feel free. It'll pay. The money comes to me, and I will do lots of wonderful good things with it. Or you can just type in normally into the chat as well. So where do you feel the Brisbane Tens, I mean, total divergence before we even hit the questions, where do you think the Brisbane Tens actually fits in? I mean, is it just a sort of hit and giggle kind of thing, or has it actually got a serious parts to play?
Oh, look, I absolutely hit and giggle. tournament. Hard to take it seriously fully because of the fact that they're not sending their superstars. The All Blacks are rested; they're not involved. In saying that, I think for a team like the Blues, you just had a feeling that it was really good for the young fellas. The fact that they won's a bonus. But to build that culture is, you've got to start somewhere. So you look at some signs for them during that tournament, and they're signs that have been missing for so many years in terms of the grit and determination and effort put into a game. In terms of the Tens themselves, had this comment, and I was thinking this myself, is that it's a better product than Sevens.
Okay, yeah, and there is actually space for players who are not backs, basically. Whereas if you look at Sevens, it's all backs, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Look, the other thing about the Tens over Sevens is the fact that the Tens has actually got some structure to it. Sevens, you take the scrums as the classic example. It's just this mess, and there's no clean restart. The team putting in has the disadvantage because the hooker in the centre has to hook, and you've got two guys pushing against three. Classic example of it. So the 10s brings the structure of the 15s while still being a fast-paced game.
So it might actually be, if World Rugby is looking at spreading the game, perhaps I should be using 10s rather than 7s. Interesting kind of thought. Josh in the chat says 10s are fun to play, are more fun to play than 7s as well. Personally, I only play touch, so so that's my
we understand that skinny white guy. It's okay.
all this tackling and actually hitting people stuff, it's all for thugs. But Andre says watched it for the first time and can't really see the purpose of it at this stage of the season. Yeah, basically there's a marketing company that's seen an opportunity and thought, hey, we can make some cash out of this, and I'm not really sure that it kind of I don't think it really has much for a place apart from it just being a bit of fun.
I was just going to say exactly those,
which is interesting.
So I was just going to say exactly those words. It's a Duco marketing event at this point in time.
Yeah. And for those of you who are international listeners, Duco also do they do a tens competition. Sorry, it's not tens, nines competition for rugby league, and they also do a lot of boxing promotion as well. So they're into all that kind of fun and palaver. Josh Volts. So we've got two Joshes on the chat tonight. That's going to confuse me. It angers me. I would rather see Super Rugby 7s, not 10s. Well, interesting. I'd say it is just a marketing ploy. We have had lots of 7s going on in New Zealand. So last weekend was the national club competition, and then about 2 or 3 weeks before that, we had the provincial 7s competition as well. Does Duco still exist, or did they separate? Yeah, there was something about that kind of stuff. I'll be honest, I don't follow it closely enough to know. I don't really care too much about them, to be honest. So yeah, it's a marketing ploy. They've tried to play all of those things, the fancy dress cards and all of that kind of stuff. If you like as long as you're happy with not suitable for work videos, there's a couple of real fun videos by the Rugby Roundup who were there. They're a good couple of Kiwis who live in Australia currently and are really trying to bring back the positivity around rugby in Australia. They've got a couple of real fun videos with all the people in fancy dress. So check up those. It's all good fun. So on to the real show, because we're only 10 minutes in. This week, we're going to be talking about the upcoming Super Rugby season. And you know what? We kind of went off on a tangent that is question one, which is the Blues won the Brisbane Tens. Will they be adding Super Rugby silverware to this?
Yes, of course they will. I mean, what sort of question is that? That's diabolical. I think, look, at the end of the day, I think, as you said, we digressed into our welcoming into it. the fact is that it's great for the Blues culture. It's given them something to build on. They'll still be battling it out with, as I said, the Chiefs and the Highlanders, I think, in the 3-4-5 position, as we talked about last week. In saying that, look, if they can build momentum off the back of this and they keep building, anything is possible. But at the end of the day, I think it's just a good place. It's just a good launching pad for them, for their culture, to build something which they've not had.
Yeah, and actually have a winning feeling, because let's be honest, a lot of these guys have come through the Mitre 10 Cup, where, let's be honest, Auckland have been awful as well. Both Oscar and I have, in the past couple of seasons, been going to quite a few of those games at Eden Park, where they don't even open up. They only open up about a quarter of the ground because so few people turn up to it. And Auckland have been poor. They were lucky not to get relegated last season. I think actually last season would have been better for them to have been relegated. But a lot of the players are not coming out of a winning culture at all. And so having actually the experience of winning will be good. One of the things I did say about the tens was you could tell the two teams that had actually practiced tens before the tournament, which was the Blues and Crusaders. Everybody else just turned up and went, "Let's play some." It is purely a pre-season giggle. Let's just play some footy.
It was interesting watching that Hurricanes team that made it to the finals. For those that aren't aware, that the Blues beat in the final. They in that first game they played the Crusaders, and it's just like, do they actually know what they're doing? And they just built every game that they played. They built experience on the go in the tournament, and to the point where they played the Crusaders again. I think it was in the semis, and they beat them because they just came up with a game plan that worked whilst the tournament was going on.
Yeah, lots of people said that, and not only them, but also the Reds as well. Apparently, they improved. It was night and day seeing how they started the competition, how they ended it, purely from just having some run-outs and just getting used to what tens means and where the space is on the pitch, how you have to defend, all of that kind of palaver.
Yep.
So, yeah. And at this point, we're going to take a commercial break. This show is brought to you by DrivingMaul. And I'm going to point to somewhere on the screen, about there-ish. And if you're watching the replay, I'll put a link in there how to become a Patreon of the DrivingMaul from $1 a month. You can help support me make these shows. And hey, if I even make enough, I might even pay Ashwin as well to come on the show.
Help me, I've got to feed my children.
Oh dear. And back to the show. Yeah, I mean, basically this doesn't matter. It will help. It will be good for the Blues, but I can't really see it impacting the rest of the season. As we say, most of the teams didn't take it seriously. Only two sides did, and one of them made the semi-finals, the other made the final. So that's how that's how serious this whole this whole piece is. So, question 2: what are your hopes for the restructured Super Rugby season?
Oof. Tough one, that one out. I've always enjoyed it, I suppose. The interesting thing is that with the restructured Super Rugby season, one of the things is the fact is that we shouldn't have any games that we really, really, really don't want to watch. You know, with less teams in there, I don't know, the Kings and the Sunwolves, type of game, which really just, I don't know how to sum it up. You probably come up with better words, but it was just nothing fixtures. And that's the thing. So more competition. I don't know. We'll find out, I think, once the competition starts rolling, because a lot of it's going to come down to, has the reduction of team strength in Australia, has the reduction of team strength in South Africa? And we won't find that out fully until the competition starts.
That's very true. We're not going to find out that. But well, actually, that's the further question further down. Yeah. But what I'm looking for is, I hope we lose a lot of the negativity. Look, it's a simple format. It's understandable. Yes, the Brumbies will only win half their games and still make the finals, but let's not moan about it, folks. Because let's just be a bit positive about this, and that's what I'm really looking forward to. Is just perhaps can we just get away from all negativity? I think this is a very key. This year and next year are the two key, or this year is going to be the key year, because the audience numbers this year are going to determine basically the TV rights that they're going to be doing, and because it runs out at the end of 2020, I think it is. Anyway, but they'll soon be discussing the TV rights. And the whole point in the restructuring is that there was low viewerships, and they were scared about how low the TV rights would go next time. So let's have a bit of positivity. Let's not knock it all the time. Yes, the referees are going to get it wrong. Yes, the Sunwolves will be awful. Yes, the Brumbies will get into the finals with only winning half their games, but let's hopefully enjoy the rest of it. And not have that negativity. That's my main hope for the season, really.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just like, at the end of the day, you get involved in the competition, own the competition, and embrace it, and you'll enjoy it a hell of a lot more. I think, as you said, the last couple of years have just been mired in negativity around what's going on. But if you look at it, at the end of the day, you ended up with a champion that you can't say didn't deserve it. So we went Highlanders, Hurricanes, Crusaders. It's not like those teams that didn't deserve to be in the finals mix actually made it to the final. So at the end of the day, the right teams make it to the final.
They do. It does seem a bit strange, to be honest, last season when you've kind of you have 16 rounds of games just to get rid of only half the teams. So. Okay, right. Let's just cut the dross after, and let's just. It's basically what happens. Everyone who's decent at least makes it to the knockouts.
There is another competition in our parts of the world that if half the teams make it to the finals, the opposing code.
You got to talk to rugby league and all that kind of stuff. I don't have a clue about how that all works, and yeah, there's not exactly much positivity around the Warriors either, is there? Let's be honest.
Who?
Who? But yes, that's my hope and dreams. Obviously, I'd love the Blues to make the finals for the first time in my living memory, pretty much. And I might even make the trip up to Auckland to try and make one of the finals if they got a home semi-final. That'd be amazing. Much more likely, actually, there'll be a home semi-final against someone like the Hurricanes or the Chiefs. I can actually also get to nowadays because that's not so far from me. But that would be really nice. But for me, yeah, it's all about let's just have some positivity around the game and something negative about it. Yes, there's going to be a whole bunch of players leaving. Moala, Messam, and these kind of players as well. So we're going to, that's the normal merry-go-round of that will happen, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we can actually get it through a season without sacking a coach from one of the teams, because that's also happened in the last couple of seasons as we've had coaches going left, right, and centre. And in Australia this time we have 3 brand new coaches, and Wessels has changed clubs. In New Zealand we've got 1 brand new coach, and obviously Boyd is leaving, so we'll have a new one next year. Actually, no, 2 brand new coaches. Sorry, both at the Chiefs and the Highlanders have got brand new coaches.
Oh, yes, true.
As well. And over in South Africa, I'm thinking that the Bulls have got a brand new coach. So have the Lions. So there's been a lot of coaching turnover during the off season. So let's hope the teams can settle down into their new systems as quickly as possible as well. So we actually get some good rugby being played. I've got lost my questions.
Well, leads into question 3.
Lead into question 3. Will the reduction in teams in South Africa and Australia lead to an upping of the quality of rugby from those conferences?
Well, alluded to that in the I think in that previous when I opened up in that previous question too, and the fact is that we're not really going to find out until those first few rounds. Then we'll start to get a gauge on how those teams will perform. To tell you the truth, at this stage in time, I'm not too hopeful. Well, not hopeful is probably not the right word, but I'm not too sure that the Australian teams are going to be stronger. The reason being is that when you actually look back at last year, when you look for the key players that can make a strong team, I don't think the numbers are actually there with those strong big name players to build the team. When you go through, obviously we talk about the New Zealand teams because we know them so well. living over here. But when you look at the teams, the squads of whether it's starting from the Highlanders, Crusaders, Hurricanes, Chiefs, the Blues, you can go through those squads and you can name a number of marquee players, more than just one or two within the squads. Even with the Highlanders, Chiefs, and the Blues, there's more than one or two marquee players in there. I just don't believe that those marquee players are there in Australian rugby. And they're still being watered down.
If we just run through the teams, I mean, obviously you've got Sunwolves, which they have brought in some extra, some better players. You've got Leach and stuff over there. But with Jamie Joseph managing both the Sunwolves and the Japanese national team, you've got to wonder if he's going to stretch himself too far with that, especially around the June window where Japan, I think, are playing some games in Singapore, and then they have a home game in Tokyo like a week later. So, pardon me. So I think it's going to be hopefully we'll see a step up from Sunwolves, but there are definitely concerns there. If we run through the Australian teams, the Reds, a very young side. That's a multi-year project with a brand new coach who's never coached us all. They're not going to be great.
Harsh, but fair.
Yeah. Get your 5 second preview of all the teams. The Rebels have got two factions in the camp: the ex-Rebels and the Force. Obviously, with the Force coach there, so we're going to have to see how much that rips the team apart and how much they can actually gel. We've already seen Leofano leave. Not Leofano, sorry, I've gone blank as the guy's name who has left the Rebels and gone up to the Reds. Their fly half. Anyway, so they've already lost one player who decided, the environment wasn't right for him. So you've got to say that bedding in period, how quickly can Wessels get them bedded in? It's basically usually the Brumbies and the Waratahs. The Waratahs always there's big question marks over the coach, and people saying he's the only coach that was there last year at the same team, but hey, is he the right coach? And actually, that's seen as negativity that the only ones with the same coach. So they'll be less than some of their parts, which basically is with the Brumbies, who will basically top the conference again with a very pragmatic playing style. Yes, there'll be we won't have the dead games of the Rebels from last year as much. So at least the games will be more competitive. But as a conference, you say, I don't see them stepping up that massively. If we head over to South Africa and look at those teams, you've got the Jaguares, and they've gone and lost one of their best wingers already. But with Ledesma in charge, hopefully they should actually have a scrum this time and hopefully be a little bit more pragmatic than they've been in the previous seasons. You've then got the Bulls with Mitchell, who's done pretty much the same thing as Kerwin's done at the Reds, which is cut the experienced players like Rudy Page and say he's going with youth. So we've got two, so that they're a multi-year project as well. The Stormers have lost their only decent fly half and have two very inexperienced 9-10s. So you've got to wonder if they'll be able to pull anything together. The Lions have lost their inspirational coach. And now the other guy's a great coach, but he's not from what I hear, he's not necessarily a great people person who's taken over. And then the Sharks are up and coming. So we've got two decent teams there. A bit like Australia's got two decent teams in the Brumbies and the Waratahs, probably actually better quality in South Africa. But because the Cheetahs and the Kings still exist, you've not really seen that flow of of the better players to the other clubs. I mean, the Cheetahs and the Kings used to lose their players anyway. I don't think that they've lost any extra this time around. So I'm not expecting South Africa to jump to again be that great either. Andre on the chat says Waratahs touring South Africa first up, tough start for them. Yeah, you got momentum's going to be a key, and morale is going to be a key thing for some of these sides. They really need to get that good start, otherwise, and perhaps they can carry it through.
That it's interesting because I mean, like we just going back to the Sunwolves in regards to that comment that was just made. We talked about the fact that the Sunwolves won't have, or some of the games will be played at Singapore. Home games are so crucial. And so they're actually taking a couple of their home games away. And when you're for a struggling team, it's a massive thing to play at home. So and they're losing that value. Coming back to the comment with the Waratahs, it could work for them because they go there, even if they don't win the 2 games, if they put in good performances, again, that can help. Everybody knows how hard it is, even for the good teams, to travel to South Africa and play well over there. So if they do go over there and perform well, even not winning but still performing well, it could help them when they get back thinking, hey, we did that well in South Africa. We've got to use that momentum to kick into our home games and produce it there.
Yeah, it's what we've seen. Actually, the Lions did in about 3 years ago. Is they had an absolute shocking start to the season. They got away from their home environment, went on tour, and I think won 3 out of 4 games or something along those sort of lines, and really turned their season around on tour. So sometimes that change of environment can be a catalyst, but obviously handling those time zone changes can be difficult. For the Waratahs, in some ways, you can say, hey, it's a tough start, but you can also say, hey, they're starting fresh before they got in the airplane. So, so from that point of view, they're traveling at their best, at their peak in some ways, rather than being already worn down with injuries and people trying to recuperate from games. So it's all swings and roundabouts from that point of view. Any other points on that one, or should we slide on into the next?
Yeah, we'll slide on into the other one, into base 4.
Christopher Edwards, aren't Sunwolves only playing 1 game in Singapore instead of 3 they played last year? Yeah, I think they have reduced the number of games. Well, I guess one of my previous comments was also that Japan are playing some games in Singapore this time. Maybe they've traded Japan games for Sunwolves games. But it does mean that their coaches aren't near the players during that June window, which could be a bit of an issue for them. On to question 4 then. Which Super Rugby player or team are you most looking forward to watching in 2018?
Well, you've got Caleb Clark in the notes there, and it'll be great when he does actually come back with the Blues, because he won't be starting, my understanding, he won't be starting with the Blues. He will be heading back into Sevens camp for a couple of their tournaments, and I believe he comes back, I could be wrong on this, but I believe he comes back to the Blues after Hong Kong. So always looking forward to seeing a good suburbs lad like Caleb Clark coming back into the Blues and watching his and seeing him produce that form that we've seen at Super Rugby level. But interesting, a couple that I'll be really keen to see outside of the Blues, as I mentioned them last week, is Amor and Fidel down at the Hurricanes. Whether they get the game time will be interesting. But, geez, those two are little balls of excitement that run at the pace of backs. And, just excitement machines. Really looking forward to seeing those two. Seeing if they can carry on what they did at Mitre 10 Cup level, and seeing if they can bring it to the Super Rugby.
Yeah, there are those exciting players we've seen in the Mitre 10 Cup coming through, and you're kind of like, can they still do it at the next level? I'm really interested to see how DMAC goes at 10. I think he can do it. I know a lot of people are very sceptical about that. But yeah, I think DMAC at 10 is something I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm going to hopefully get up to Hamilton for a couple of Friday night games. So there's definitely that's someone I'm looking forward to.
Don't they play in your part of town?
Okay, so yeah, I'm now in New Plymouth, everybody, and they have previously played in New Plymouth, but unfortunately, one of the problems is that one of the stands at the ground has failed its earthquake test, so it's not safe to host any major games. So we've got no All Blacks game, we've got no Super Rugby games. The year that I moved down here, they lose all their games. It's just it's a conspiracy, I tell you. It's a conspiracy by New Zealand Rugby. They don't like DrivingMaul. We're too independent. We're too rebellious
independent
for them.
voice, yes. Shut them down. You're quite a DMAC fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I do like his play. And I just think he can play 10, whereas I think a lot of people are saying he can't. So it's going to be interesting.
I absolutely agree with you. This is the under-20s tournament back in New Zealand when he was there, and Simon Hickey was the captain of the under-20s and so was selected ahead of him. And it's just like, hey, look, I'm from Auckland, Blues fan, and Simon Hickey's an Auckland player, but Damien McKenzie should have been starting that tournament at 10. And you saw the impact as soon as he came on the field. And when they were behind, I can't remember, I think it was a semi-final against South Africa in that tournament. And the under-20s were behind by a bit, and DMAC came on. they didn't win it. South Africa did win the game, but he definitely added the punch that they required to try and break down that big South African defence. So I'm looking forward to seeing D-Mac and see how he goes at 10 as well, actually, bringing him forward. That's I think it's his natural position as 10. So, looking forward to seeing it.
It's going to be interesting. I put a tweet out yesterday, actually, about this, because you got D-Mac moving to 10. Geordie Barrett's come out and said that, hey, he's put on weight over Christmas, and not just from eating lots of turkey. And he's looking forward to playing 12 this season. And then you got Rico Ioane, who has come out and said that he wants to play at 13, doesn't want to play on the wing, which didn't work last season when the Blues tried it. So you've got all these guys who have been brought in the back three to ease them into Super Rugby, now saying, hey, no, I want to be closer to the action. I want to be more of a decision maker and move forward. So it's going to be interesting how all of those guys do step up into those, if they get the opportunity to, and how they step up into those roles. Because let's be honest, at the Hurricanes, you've got Launapi. He's got to get past first. So does he? So it could be a struggle to do that. At the Blues, whilst I think Rico Ioane would oust George Mawala from the 13 jersey quite comfortably, we've got to see how that goes and whether he's considered to be there as well.
Look, just on that Rico comment, I agree with you, and I think George is actually a really good player. I'm a big fan of George Mawala, but unfortunately he doesn't have the full centres game distribution-wise, etc. So I don't know what Tana's thinking is, but it wouldn't be a stretch to sort of think, hey, look, slowly bring Rico into 13 and push George out to the wing, and do that mix. Because George, when he started with the Blues, did start out on the wing, and he's played wing out there as well.
There's a difference between playing wing at the NPC level and doing it at Super Rugby level.
Oh no, he did Super Rugby as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have a go at Joshua on who's in the live chat. NPC is a joke competition. Some context is important. It's not a joke competition. It's a great competition. Really enjoy it. There are some exciting players coming through there.
Absolutely. Look, some of the previous iterations of the NPC haven't been going well, but if you saw this year's competition, I thought this year's competition, apart from Auckland sucking, there were some good players coming through, and there was some good matches as well. I'd agree with you, Paul. That's the NPC is not a joke competition. It really is the development forum base for New Zealand rugby. The way that the teams are playing this year last year was fantastic. And it's going to become more and more critical as time goes on, as more and more players end up disappearing off to Europe. It's going to become a real critical competition for New Zealand rugby.
Yeah, it is. And you can see how critical it is with the NRC being created in Australia, that they clearly are saying that we need this level of competition to be in there. The other thing it allows people to do, and I guess this is, I'm going to just take the podcast off that way on a big tangent. Sorry, if you're listening to the podcast rather than actually watching, you'll have missed my hand movement there. But one of the things we all keep talking about is player welfare and playing less games. Now, if we go to Northern Hemisphere, basically they're talking about the test players playing less games. And the problem is, if you're a non-test player, you've got to play enough rugby to pay your bills. And so you can't just cut games, because then the non-test playing players just wouldn't get enough games to improve, become better players, and also earn enough money. That's why you need that third tier if you want to try and balance the difference between players. It allows the NPC or the non-international Super Rugby players to play enough rugby to earn a living, and to play enough rugby to actually develop and keep improving. If they didn't have the NPC or the Curry Cup or the NRC, the players basically only play for 6 months of the year, and that's not enough. They need to play more than that. I understand they need to have rest, but they don't need to have rest for half the year. So I think it's an amazing competition.
Now look, the only thing that disappoints me about the NPC is the fact that I'd really like to see some of the older players and because that's where the younger guys pick up the experiences from the older players. And that's what's missing, to be able to really sort of just that little extra oomph to it. I think would make a huge difference. Unfortunately, it's those experienced players that head off overseas to make their money while they've still got a few years left on them.
Yeah, it's double-edged sword, isn't it? One, you don't have guys who just play NPC for 15 years or 10 years, blocking other players coming through. So you've got that constant flow of players, because NPC, if you're not playing Super Rugby, you're not earning enough to really keep it as a career. So you have to sort of drop. You give it 2 or 3 years, and if you haven't made it by like 24, basically you jack it in and go and get yourself a real job. So you do have that it doesn't stop players coming through, because there isn't much money at that level. But as you say, yeah, it does mean you have some very inexperienced sides in there that can, as Andre said, there can be big gaps between various teams, because some teams can just suddenly capitulate and fall apart because they just don't have the leadership to help the team out in that kind of place. I mean, people like Edwards, who I interviewed a couple of seasons ago now, who went off to France from Joe Edwards, and he's just exactly the kind of guy you'd want to see in and around Auckland for the next 5-7 years, providing leadership to that pack, showing the guys what it means to be a professional, how to act as a professional rather than just a guy out of school who's good at rugby. It does lack those senior players.
Actually, interesting, is it? So someone like Thomas the Tank Engine coming back, he'd be a massive pickup for a NPC side, because he's the one that's going to come along. He's played for England now, so absolute pinnacle of a rugby career, except the All Blacks, obviously. But sort of can give a lot of information, a lot of learnings to those young fellas coming through. Someone like that. So if you're a Wellington or Hawke's Bay, you'd be fighting over to get Thomas the Tank Engine in your squad for NPC.
Yeah, he is going to come back, and he's also going to be playing Super Rugby. Let's be honest. I can't see how. He was a leading try scorer in the Viva Premiership for 2 seasons running. Now, when they changed the rules around mauls, where you couldn't swim out, where you had to basically pass the ball back rather than one player just sliding back with the ball, yes, the number of tries dropped. He was still, he still scored quite a lot of tries, but he didn't score more tries than the wingers. And he was the top try scorer not just amongst forwards, but amongst all the players for 2 seasons. And here is a guy that, if played and used right, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But he is not an all-round player. He has a certain set of things he does well, and you just make sure he can do them well. So
just remember, you heard it here first. Lloyd Burr named Bill English's retirement today. DrivingMaul Paul is saying that Thomas the Tank Engine will be in the development squad for the Hurricanes and play for them at some stage of the Super Rugby season.
I'm not sure it'll be the Hurricanes or the Chiefs, but yes, he'll be playing somewhere. And we were talking about heat. Well, unfortunately, closing Google Talk plugin may help your Mac cool down. So if we go off the air, it might be because my laptop has combusted and is on fire. So sorry, folks, we might have to keep hurry this one along a little bit there. All right, so the Cheetahs head coach is going to Worcester next season. Are the South African Pro 14 teams going to be a shop window rather than a tool for retaining talent?
That's going to come down to how well the Cheetahs go. If the Cheetahs, because I understand they started off really well when they went up to play in the Northern Hemisphere competitions. I've got a South African boss, so he's keeping me informed. And the Cheetahs were actually doing pretty well. The Kings weren't, but the Cheetahs were. But they've dropped off from my understanding. So if the Cheetahs start well, their performance start dropping off, then the good players within the Cheetahs will obviously be cherry-picked for the better sides. And they'll be the big offers coming in. So, the fact is that a head coach going to Worcester only is going to amplify that happening, because he's going to know the internal workings at the Cheetahs and who he might want to pick up and who he might not want to pick up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. A lot of the players were like, "Oh, this would be a great opportunity because I'll be able to show my wares and play against and people in Europe." And you got sort of the South African Rugby Union going, it gets us. We'll get European money, so we'll be able to keep some more of our players. So it's going to be interesting. Andre makes a good point. Yeah, but I think the Cheetahs have only won one away game all season, and that was to the Kings. So which was in South Africa. So they've not won any games in Europe. But I think they've won all but one of their home games.
What's the travel time?
South Africa, so they only lost one there. About 7-8 hours, I think it is.
Yeah, so same time zone, but still 7 or 8 hours in a plane, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But it is same time zone, so at least your recovery and stuff isn't so bad on that kind of thing. It does help. Interesting comment in here. Any chance James Haskell goes to Super Rugby? No. Put bluntly. No, we're not going to see James Haskell back in Super Rugby, I don't think. He is looking for a contract in England because he still sees himself as having a chance. Andre, 8 hours from South Africa to the UK. Thank you. Haskell is trying to find himself a contract in England in the Olympic Premiership so he can still continue to play for England. So no, I can't see him coming to Super Rugby. Maybe after the Rugby World Cup, but very unlikely.
He'll be focusing on his fitness business and books and stuff, isn't he? So I see coming through on Twitter all the time.
He's definitely looking for life after rugby, and I think he'll want to stay in England to keep promoting his businesses in England. So yeah, I can't see him coming to Super Rugby. Someone else, Joshua, also reckoned that Thomas Waldron would find that it would be far too the pace of Super Rugby will be too much for him. I think you'll be surprised he is much. It's how you use him. He's not a Kieran Reid player. You're not going to play him in the wide channels. You're going to play him around the ruck, and he will get over the line for you, and he will make yards. It's just a matter of realizing how to use him.
You look at someone like Brad Shields. Brad Shields does get wide, but he does a lot of work on the tight around the fringes as well. So there's already players in Super Rugby that are performing a tight number 8 role as opposed to a wide number 8 role.
Yep, it's horses for courses. I don't think he'll. It's about making sure he's got the right coach who understands him and uses him properly.
Well, you got Plumtree at the Hurricanes, and I think you got a forwards coach that understands forwards play pretty well. I mean, he's had good impacts wherever he's really gone. Sharks, now at the Hurricanes. So,
well, we should have to see. Will Plumtree actually get the job, or will somebody else get the job? We'll have to wait and see on that one, though.
Yeah. Well, he's still got assistant this year, hasn't he?
He's still assistant this year. And if you think if the Hurricanes go well this year, I can't see how Plumtree can't get the role. It should be his as far as I'm concerned. Then again, I'm not too sure which other coaches are around that'll be vying for that for that role. To be honest,
I sort of think. I mean, with that Plumtree, I think he's a little bit of a shoo-in, a little bit, because you sort of see they're looking at the Crusaders model almost in terms of bringing through that assistant coach into the top role type thing and having the assistant coaches learning the culture and the roles and how they want it all running, and then pop them into the top role.
Yep. Yeah. It's going to how it's going to happen, and it's how Super Rugby, it's how New Zealand rugby has kind of been going. So obviously at the national level, we're looking at people have to be assistants before they become the head coach, which we just talked about last week. You say it's been happening for years down in Christchurch,
Village of the Damned.
Maybe it's starting to happen in down in Wellington as well. An interesting one from Rich Freeman, who is a rugby journalist out of Japan. On Twitter, he says, "Keep an eye out for rookie." And here we go. This is me and my pronunciations. Kazuyuki Himeno for the Sunwolves, and Kotaro Matsushimiya, who will both be guys coming out of the Sunwolves and players to look out for this season. So have a look out for them as well. I'm hoping to get him on some shows once the Olympics are over, which he's doing some reporting for.
Nice.
Get him on a show soon and give us some real insight into Japanese rugby rather than just that Jamie Joseph is coaching two teams at the same time.
It's interesting, actually, just on the Sunwolves. Saw a few of their games in the 10s, and very much the same style that they play in their 15s, and the fact that it's all helter-skelter. Well, we call it helter-skelter, but it's a controlled helter-skelter. And if they can get a forward base that gives them good ball, the style of play that the Japanese teams play could be very interesting at Super Rugby level and running teams off their feet.
But just to, was it? I don't think it was the Sunwolves that were there. I thought it was.
Oh, it was Panasonic. Sorry, Wild Knights. Sorry, no, it was
Panasonic Wild Knights.
Yep.
Coached by Dingo Deans.
That's it. But you know what? So actually, that makes my point a little bit better in the fact that there's another Japanese team playing the same sort of style that all the Japanese teams seem to do, which is just that really extreme, fast-paced game plan. What comes unstuck for them is the fact, obviously, you've got to make it mistake-free, otherwise you get stung.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Robbie Deans did say that actually that because it was after their season had finished, I think he lost in the top 14 final. And basically he said, yeah, that they came down purely as a postseason lark to have some fun. They were not taking it seriously in any way, shape or form. So there's not, it's not so much about that. Hugh comes up on Twitter, comes up with a great player to looking forward to seeing this season. Christian Leofano. The return of him from leukemia, had a good season, had some good time playing over in Ulster to get himself back to match fitness before coming back to Super Rugby. So it's going to be great to see him back in Super Rugby because what a wonderful story, and we do wish
absolutely.
him all the best.
Absolutely. One of the stars of the competition, really. And so it's good of one of the watchers to comment. Absolutely wish him all the best and look forward to seeing his skills because he's got a great set of skills as a rugby player.
And we're back. Sorry for disappearing. I think my computer overheated and decided to throw a wobbler. So and Josh on the live chat. Thank you for taking over as host while we lagged out there. It's good to see you. Good to see the community stepping in and lending a hand. So I think I left it with me saying we've run through all the topics. What do you fancy talking about this? Anything else you want to have a chat about?
I'm just looking forward to the competition starting. Obviously, there's be the games in South Africa starting this weekend. So I'll be honest, I won't get. I might catch some of the 4 o'clock kickoff game as my kids come and jump on me in the morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning or something. But I'll probably watch replays or highlights of it. But looking forward to it. And we've got the Blues playing a warm-up game against the Hurricanes on Thursday up at Mahurangi, which is just sort of northern parts of Auckland. They'll hate me saying that up there, but I believe it's still part of Auckland. But so looking forward to that. Yeah.
Is that part of the North Auckland rugby province?
I believe that it's part of one of the Northland's sub-unions, but it might actually end up playing in the North Harbour competition. Actually, no, it plays in the North Harbour competition.
Sorry, I was doing a joke from many years ago when Northland used to be called North Auckland.
Oh, right.
Sorry,
I didn't pick up on
throwing that. Throwing it well back. Yeah, when you have to explain a joke,
that's right. I still call it North Auckland.
Oh dear. Anyway, so this weekend and basically with Super Rugby, also DrivingMaul is going into overdrive this season. So Thursday night at 8 o'clock, I'm planning on doing a preview of the 2 games that are coming up this weekend, and then on Monday night at 8 o'clock, I will do a review of those 2 games as well. So the Tuesday night show will keep going throughout the season, and this is our kind of magazine chat opinion show. But I'll also be looking at adding in a preview show per weekend and a review show each weekend, and also going forwards when I'm available, I'll also be trying to do live post-match reaction to the Friday night New Zealand games and also to the Saturday night New Zealand games as well. So all hitting overdrive over the next few months. Please help me to provide all this for you. I'm going to point again at the red picture because I'm going to put the Patreon link there for those watching the recording of the video. So do support DrivingMaul. I'd love to be able to do this 24/7 for you guys. And whilst we're wrapping up, Ashwin, how can people get hold of you during the week?
Mate, I'm just on Twitter. NZFatso is the handle. And so if they want to follow me, just on Twitter at NZFatso.
Cool. And obviously at DrivingMaul on Twitter, just on that face, on top of that jersey is going to be a face of my face. So do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are watching the recording. If you're watching it live, go down below, hit the red button. And if you're listening to the podcast, obviously subscribe on your iTunes app. Up there will be a picture of my latest video as well. So go and watch that next.
Bye all.